All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6:04. Any changes to the agenda?
We will need an executive session.
Okay. All right.
That's all.
That's on, adding to number 13 for Frank. Yes. So, yes, ordinance enforcement, I'll put that on for number 13. So that's an update. And so we need to approve the minutes from May 20th, 2024 regular meeting, and I'll make a motion to approve those.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Which one was that?
May 2020 regular meeting.
May 20th. May 20th?
Yep.
Yes.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Right. Wait, it's not 6:30, is it?
3:03. Oops.
Oh,
Yeah, thanks.
a little dyslexic here.
Yeah,
8:30.
always had that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Pushing them on the phone.
Anytime.
You can tell where I want to be. All right, next on the order of business is to approve the town meeting minutes from May 21st. That was our
Special meeting.
second town meeting, yep. I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second. Yes.
Any discussion?
I'll put this here.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.
Is there anything anybody would like to speak about? This is our comment period. Anything anybody's noticed? Yes, Bruce.
I would like to mention the wild gerbil that is taking over the roadsides and moving into a lot of people's fields. And I think a lot of people aren't even aware of what it is. I know a few years ago I thought it was Queen Anne's lace, which it isn't, obviously. And it can pretty much ruin a field if it's allowed to go in. And I wish that, I know that the highway department has a lot to do already, but if they could get aggressive with mowing the roadside where the gerbil exists, it would be immensely helpful to everybody who has a property.
So the plant that Bruce is talking about has a phototoxin. If you get into the plant, you get in the sun, it can burn you. It's spread generally by mowing later in the season. I'm not sure what the exact date is, but to control it, it would need to be mowed, I think, in probably June, early June. Because if you wait till July, it goes to seed, and then when you mow, it spreads the,
If you mow too early, you could get a second blossom. But if you hit it mid-June, before it starts to turn color and go to seed, one mowing will take care of it.
Is that something you'd speak to Larry about, Rick?
Absolutely. I'll take care of it.
Okay. Any other comments on that?
They can start on Windy Lane.
Of course. That's the first one.
Well, fields up there. Yeah, it's a field, so yeah. It's on the way to this, one of the state parks.
Okay. Anything else? Anything else anybody would like to add? Any other subjects? Okay. We're going to move on to the Windsor County Sheriff's Department Law Enforcement Service Contract. And what's not on here, I think, is maybe, it's okay, the amount we agreed on that and had budgeted for that. Oh, there it is. Okay. 68,000.
Yeah. So, for
Why did it go up by
information,
8 grand? Why did it go up?
we just budgeted for it because of inflation.
I'm saying, why did their rate go up?
Why did their rate go up? From inflation, It's like everybody else.
Inflation. I thought inflation was down.
Well,
It's transitory.
We budgeted for that too, Keith.
I'm just saying.
Stagflation.
It was 60, now it's 60, almost 69,
68,
68 and change.
no change, it was 68. 68, right there, 68,000. I will say the contract has been reviewed, and it appears to be exactly the same as the previous contract, except for the dollar amount. So the terms and conditions are the same that we've agreed to previously.
So how many hours a week is that?
How many hours? There's no hours in the contract. There is no hours indicated.
It says something about
I forget
X amount of.
what we ended up,
About 1,000 hours a year, right? Rather than monthly?
I think that's about right.
980 to 1040.
There you go. It's a lump sum fee. We're not charged by the hour. We break that up into 12-month payments and pay every month.
How do they patrol the town? Do they patrol just the main
5,
routes
6, 6.
or every single?
I don't believe for a while they were doing every single road, but I don't believe they're doing that anymore. And they are 24/7 emergency response.
So we shouldn't have to wait 2 hours for a state trooper. Was one of the items, I guess.
Shouldn't,
Right, should.
right.
So what is the response time? Hour schedule?
It depends on how close a car is, I would say, because they could be in Windsor, they could be in Bridgewater, right? They could be Reading.
Could be in Ludlow.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's within half an hour. So
Yeah, and I think if anybody does call, it'd be good to get a sense of response time. So, if you hear of anybody that calls them, or, please, we can find that out too, by asking them for a log when they respond to Plymouth.
I think like you said, because they were saying where they were, and they kept it within a radius, didn't they, when they put this together?
Yeah.
I think.
did they come down to that accident on W Road? I was gone that day.
No,
They didn't get there
no, they running.
safely?
Yeah, they were close.
How often they will be in our town? Every day or every other day, or what is what is their schedule?
I would say there isn't a set schedule, and there's a reason for that, so they can't be patterned.
Right.
If there's a bad guy out there looking at a house and they know they come from 8 to 12 every morning, then they'll just go rob the house in the afternoon. So they stagger the schedule. It's different every day. Yeah, there's not a set schedule.
But they will be often here, often in our town.
I've seen them a couple times.
Mm.
Maybe for speeders.
I will make a motion to approve the contract.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye. Looks like it's just you. This is Lane's pal, I guess. Angela's.
Do we have Kyle Katz on for the river program? Rebecca? Oh,
There.
hello.
There's somebody.
Hello?
Is that there?
Do you
Hello,
hear
Kyle?
Jessica? Hi.
Mouth's moving. Can't hear.
Jessica. It may be on their end if they can't hear you either.
There we go.
Okay, can you
Kyle,
hear me?
welcome.
Hi. First of all, I want to thank you for finding time to put this item on the agenda. I am here with Jessica Luisos, who is an engineer, senior water resources engineer with SLR. And they are working with Two Rivers Ottaquechee Regional Commission, which is who I work for, on the River Project. RIVER is an acronym that stands for the Resilience Initiative for Vermont Empowerment and Recovery. And the project really stemmed from and resulted out of the floods last July. And the state was looking to respond to the flooding in some of the communities around the state that were most impacted by it. So within our region, Plymouth, Bridgewater, and Woodstock are the communities in which we'll be working. This project is funded by the Vermont Housing Conservation Board and VEM through using FEMA funding. And essentially what this project boils down to is an extensive public outreach process along with engineering support to develop a set of projects that could and that will be winnowed down to several projects that can go through the FEMA Hazard Mitigation Grant Program and receive funding that way. So the project is just getting underway. Two Rivers will be doing a lot of the public outreach, and then SLR and Jessica will be doing a lot of the background research and feasibility to determine which projects might be and project ideas might be most suitable to move forward with a hazard mitigation grant application. Jessica, do you want to provide a little background on SLR and the work that you do in Vermont?
Yes. So I'm a water resource engineer, but I'm just one of a team of other engineers that focus on rivers and hydraulics, as well as scientists who understand geomorphology of rivers. We kind of specialize in river-specific work and have worked with many communities across Vermont on many different phases, I guess all of the phases of flood mitigation, starting with flood recovery projects, flood mitigation project identification, working through feasibility and design, doing FEMA's benefit cost analysis, which is what we do to kind of prove to FEMA that a project is really worth the cost, looking at the benefits to the community with reduced flooding and reduced risk. So we do work through all of those phases and are looking forward to doing that with your community.
What are some of the mitigation strategies that you all kind of do or work with? I know floodplains are something that we tend to stay out of to let the rivers flow free. So I'm just sort of curious what kind of projects may have been done or are in the works.
But there will be a public forum as well as a brainstorming meeting as well to really expand the list of potential projects. And then once we have a broad list, we'll look through and figure out, okay, which of these could go through the hazard mitigation grant application process. The timeline for this currently is we have through October, I believe, but there's a possibility of extending the project, I think, to January. So that's essentially it in a nutshell. We don't have the public meetings planned yet, but you will be in the loop as to when those will be taking place. And once we have a set of projects lined up, they'll have to come back to the town for approval to then be submitted as applications.
So I was just curious, what kind of projects are typical? I know there's some floodplain constraints. So I'm curious, what have you done for other communities or have proposed? And I'm also curious about like the typical cost of a project. I know they can vary, but just get us order of magnitude.
So projects can range. We're essentially looking at this point, anything and everything that will reduce flood risk. So it could be, for example, a buyout of a structure that's in a dangerous location. It could be an elevation of a structure to move it higher if it's flooded previously or multiple times, just moving it up so it's maybe outside of that flood zone. And it could be flood restoration as well, creating more space for that floodplain to spread out and then potentially reducing the flood impact further downstream. So those are some possibilities. Jessica, do you have other examples? I've just named a few, but.
Through the HMGP, the same grant program, and I guess some other examples beyond what Kyle mentioned. One of them was a dam removal project because the dam was both flooding things upstream, and in the case of a failure, it would have flooded more things downstream. So that was one that he didn't mention. A bridge replacement, in the case where a bridge was kind of too small and backing up water upstream, causing flooding. So making the bridge bigger, reduce flooding. We've done quite a few floodplain mitigations, which is one of the things he talked about, where there was maybe fill or buildings kind of in the river that were then dug out and removed to just give the water more space to spread out. So quite a few different types of projects.
Thank you.
And that's a place where you can learn a bit about the background of the program, as well as putting in potential project ideas. So along with the public meetings that we'll be holding in the next few months, that's another opportunity that we'll be publicizing. And so that's essentially it. I don't know if you have additional questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Kind of recap, can you recap? Is my mic hot? Kyle, can you just recap what you were saying in the beginning? Because I think we got cut off. We didn't hear what you were talking about a place you can go and learn more about it.
Yeah, so we have a website up. It's called riverprojectsvt.org. And you can go there, see some of the background of the project. And there's also a portal where potential project ideas can be submitted. So that's one element, along with the public meetings, the public forum, and a brainstorming session. The website's another way for people to learn about the project and be able to put in potential project ideas.
Kyle, how much funding is available?
That's a good question. I'm not entirely sure. I think that I know that VEM has 90 million, but I don't know how that gets divvied up. So I'm not sure how much gets allocated to River. But there's enough for at least one, if not two applications per town. And there's typically a municipal match for hazard mitigation grant applications, although I did just see today that applications that get in later this year, the municipal match is being covered by the state. I don't know if we'll be able to get anything in by the deadline, but the match is typically 25%.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you so much for giving us the time, and we'll keep you in the loop on when the public outreach will take place.
All right. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Separate from what Tom Harris came to a meeting to talk about something. Is this separate from that?
It is.
Totally different. The other one's just a survey, right? Or just a
A study.
what?
A study.
Study, yeah.
Yeah.
That's like, yeah. The other one's just a study.
Yep.
That could take up to 3 years, correct? The study, you said?
Sounds like it.
That's what he said.
Is that something worth putting in the Plymouth Press so that people know something is going on?
You mean this or the study?
Something about the study, what might be happening with
Yeah,
that?
that's different than this. It's not-
Right,
Yep.
right. No, I'll put a little bit of
Sure.
this in there, but I was wondering about the other part, just when people apprised.
Do we have anything that talks more about the scope of that study? Do you know?
I know it hasn't gone too far right now.
Okay.
We're in the really early stages of
Right,
it.
yeah.
And
It's 3 years before you even know what.
And I've checked in with Tom and Les Wright, and it's still very, very early.
Nebulous?
But yes, there we go, checking them, yes. Don't worry about that one.
This is a good thing to talk about, perhaps, and if you can mention the Rivers website,
Yes,
And
I
that-
wrote that down.
Two Rivers will be doing the outreach. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Is Todd involved with that at all?
Not directly, as far as we know. We also got a grant for Tyson that we spoke about last week, which is also federally funded. It's a FEMA, I think, grant
Really?
to excavate in front of the bridge, the little bridge down in Tyson, so that the water doesn't back up there.
Yes.
You mean the one above the Echo Lake Inn?
Correct.
Yeah, that's your one.
Could you send me a little bit on that? Maybe we should put that in. I'm sure people would love to know something might be done there.
So the last summer it was a temporarily fixed, basically. It wasn't permanently done.
I think it was fixed, but I think we also recognized the need to do a little more. I should actually say, the FEMA rep recognized the need to do a little bit more. And so they're doing a little small piece of engineering and a survey to get ready to do the project. Which is what, June? We can't do it till June because of the rivers?
Right.
Right, such a.
Well, you know, that one rain we had a while back, I mean, that was scary. I went by it and I thought, whoa, this could go anytime. So that would be wonderful if it would be on there.
Director or something, exactly, so it sounded good.
So when they do contact us with this need survey, that might be something to mention, is we feel like that bridge might be a little undersized and they could take a look at that.
Well, it sounds like we'll get one shot, you know, one project that they'll fund. So pick the best one. I'm sure that would be costly, no? Redoing that bridge, yeah.
They're never cheap.
How's the other bridge coming by Hook?
The Billings Road Bridge, it's coming good. They poured the concrete deck today, they'll pour curbs tomorrow. We'll do a wet cure for a couple days and we're gonna start doing work in the river.
How many
We've got a June permit from the stream alteration people. So it's coming along good. We're shooting for July 1 to be complete.
The Billings or both? Just the Billings beach or both beaches?
I didn't hear what.
Beaches?
Bridges.
Bridges, she's saying, bridges.
So the beach is right now the construction, so when is it going to be done?
The one on Billings Road?
Yes.
July 1.
Okay. So it's more than 2 weeks.
Before 4th of July.
I hope.
I know.
You know, we get 2 weeks of rain, the river comes up. That could be a problem.
I know.
We got a lot of rain coming too, end of this week, so,
Showers, I heard.
yeah, I know.
Let's see. Showers.
Not like in Texas.
God. For hot
Hope not. They don't want Texas rain.
Oh, we already had that.
Next on the agenda, I have review and approve the M&T Bank Fraud Protection Services. And Elaine, are you going to walk us through that?
Sure. After much discussion between Sherry and Angela and myself, we're going to do two things. The payee positive pay, which will verify serial numbers, dollar amounts, and payee names of all checks presented to the bank. And they will send email alerts to us if there are any things that do not match. And then also our ACH monitor fraud review, which will also receive emails and alerts regarding any unnoticed ACH debits. So it's pretty much the maximum we feel of what we should do. And we have the option to change these services if we feel we don't need that. But given what we have seen come through with regards to other people's checks being altered by name, we felt it was best to take the most protection that we could get. Because it's not our money, it's the town money.
And the cost for this isn't great, right?
These two will be $60 a month.
Okay. That's pretty reasonable, I think.
Sort of.
Yeah,
With all the AI stuff going on.
I guess so.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next on our list is to review and approve the revised bidding policy for purchasing goods and services. We reviewed this last July when we were talking about the flooding and emergencies. How do we handle that? Our policy kind of hemmed us in a little bit, and I think, Angela, you included I as an update? Okay. That was the excessive damage to infrastructure clause. This policy had not been really updated since 2014, which I think is fine. Not a whole lot had changed. 10 years.
So this was previously approved, right?
Yes,
And are there changes now?
just I. You know, and the one question that I have, it says major purchases are those purchases of goods or service in an amount of $20,000 or more. And that requires a formal bid process according to our current procedures.
And a newspaper and everything.
Yeah, and I am not always a fan of bidding. I don't always think it gets you the best price. And so I think that policy does a disservice to the taxpayers. I think in excess of $250,000, that's a requirement for use of federal funds. But I think some of these smaller projects, you can work with a contractor, and it's not a cover your behind situation. Many of our local contractors tend to work for time and materials, which is pretty reasonable. You go to a bid, and then there's all kinds of lines for general conditions. I don't know, I'll let somebody else, Rick, you and Keith can weigh in on that too, but I've just seen all the line items that are there to sort of cover yourself, and the bidding gets expensive at times.
The other thing to keep in mind is if we're going to try and keep our projects in town with our local contractors who are taxpayers, there may be 3 excavators. They may not all be available. We may have an emergency culvert we need to replace, or a bridge abutment that fails and we need to jump on it real quick. Sometimes we gotta use who's available. They all price about the same per hour. It's not like one's twice the next guy. So sometimes it's just better all around to get a job from somebody who you know what the product's gonna be when they're finished, and they're reasonable, and they're available. So there's something to think about.
So, I don't know, Keith, do you have any thoughts about that?
I mean, it applies to goods and services across the board, correct?
Yep.
I mean, I would reduce the number. That's how I see it. I think that things that are, whatever, 10, 12, 15 grand, one person shouldn't be making a decision to spend the money. I think it should at least be reviewed. Say, let's not spend, whatever, 20 grand, or, you know.
So that's the regular purchases, generally speaking, those should be revert, and that's usually, so what I'm kind of like hearing you say is like, either 2 people should sign off on it, or like, we should get a quote. A few quotes.
Well, I mean, I see all the things that I sign off on. I mean, there's a lot of money that's spent on big ticket items, so, yeah, I guess you could shop around. You could have 2 people, require 2 people signing off on it. At least ask, did you shop around? And did you try and, whatever. I don't know, in times of inflation, there's different ways to skin the cat. Change brands, go to New Hampshire and buy something, you know, whatever. Does it make business harder? I don't think so. I just think it more oversight of the line items. So if you want to buy something for 15 grand, yeah, 2 people should, I'm just using rough numbers, but, you know,
Yeah.
And services, whatever, do we spend, 15 grand fixing this truck, or do we kick the ball back the other way and say, do we buy another one?
All right, so what do? Put the truck in the yard and let it sit there and call around and get somebody to come down and look at it and analyze it and give you a quote, and then call the next guy and have the other shop come down and have them look at it and give a quote? I mean, is that, and meanwhile, the truck sits there, it's out of service, or an excavator, or front end loader, or whatever it may be. I mean, is that, I don't know.
So it does seem like repairs fall into one category, right? And maybe there's a category of buying other pieces of equipment. I don't know. I agree with you, because you're just, you're not gonna get anybody that's gonna bid on repairing your vehicle, I don't think, or give you a, you're not, I mean, it's hard enough to get that done right now. But, if we are buying things, I agree with you. Keith and that.
I mean, you don't have to agree with me. I just, that's just the way I see it.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was like, it's constant. There's always big ticket items that we're spending money on. So, you know, okay, fine, we need it, buy it, whatever. But I mean, it all adds up and we're broke. So maybe we should say, oh, do we need that? Or can we buy a different one? Or can we get a smaller one? Or can we buy a different brand? Or can, you know, I don't know. And that's, you know, that's different. You know, maybe it takes you and me, or me and him, or all of us to agree on it. But
Just say something, you know, like the fire department has a policy that says that after a certain dollar amount, you know, you have to go to the department and vote on it. But something like truck repair is a separate, because it needs to be fixed immediately, where you don't, so I don't know if you, and I'm just using the truck repair as an example, but it needs to get done because that's how we function as far as the highway. Do you have that as a separate line item where that's excluded? Because it needs to get fixed versus the.
Right, if you're gonna buy bunker gear, you talk about it. New bunker
Yes.
gear, right?
I mean, I'm talking about the highway,
Yeah,
thing, just,
right.
you know, but yeah.
Do we, sorry, but also, to add to that, what you said, Angela, do we have, like, vendors for services? Like, maybe, fixing like trucks, or after the certain selection, right? So that would be our vendor. So if truck is going, you know, something's happening to it, you just call them and ask them to come and fix it. But in this case, it's already pre-selected vendor, which does the work, does specific services. And we just set aside a certain amount of money, maybe counting that will be probably need to set aside for such and such job, or HVAC, right? Like air conditioning or whatever, the services as well, right? Something's broken in the government.
my point's more general. I'm just basing on what I see when I sign them, you know, it's more of, do we spend, I'm saying as a board, you know, when you look at trucks, do we spend all sorts of money repairing a truck? You know, tens of thousands of dollars, or do we just say, we're not gonna do that, we're gonna buy a new truck? Whether or not we're gonna fix this one or not, that's not what I'm saying. Yes, you gotta fix stuff so it goes and works, and that's the nature of heavy equipment trucks, I get it, but I'm not, that's not my point. My point is, we're talking about a spending policy for big spending, so should we have more scrutiny on some of the bigger things that we spend money on? I'm not saying $500, I'm saying, you know, 17, I mean, I signed off on something for $17,000 in repairs on a truck. So that's a lot of money to me. I mean, could someone else do the repair? I'm sure, who knows? Yes, for sure. Does it have to be the vendor that we take it to? I don't know.
Well,
Could you take it somewhere else? Maybe.
My take is just scrutiny should be in every single decision of spending of money. So let's say we're spending on services, yes, we're selecting the vendor for that. And we know what that vendor could be, you know, charging us for such and such services. But then we're making a decision to have them officially, sort of like officially be our go-to guys. So in that is decision when you decide, all right, so these are our official.
I don't think any vendor does any state entity, a government entity, any favors anytime, anywhere. I think when a vendor gets a contract to repair a truck, you're gonna pay full price on the filters, the parts, labor. You're not gonna get, no one's doing the town of Plymouth a favor. So can you do things differently? Probably. You could probably find somebody to work on something different for X amount of dollars. I don't, you know, this is all, you know, you're asking the right questions, but I don't have the answers because I don't know. But, you know what I mean?
Yeah, Bruce?
Seems to me, there's two types of maintenance. There's planned maintenance and emergency. Planned maintenance, when you know you have to do a big rebuild, or even brakes on a big truck, you can now put a lot of money. You could put that out to bid because it's not an emergency. when something breaks down, you can't afford to have it sitting around with the crew sitting around unable to work because they don't have the truck or the other piece of equipment. At that point, you want to go with somebody that you have history with, and you know that they're fair, and their prices are reasonable. Nobody's giving away their labor, and as you noted, parts, there's generally 100% markup on parts, and that's how they make their living, so you can't deny them that. But in an emergency, you're gonna pay for it. If it's something that you can plan for, a month down the line or whatever, then you get prices.
And I think a lot of that's being done, I don't think we know about it. Especially in the highway department.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Aren't there usually isn't there usually more than one person involved in the decision for spending money?
I think it's your board.
I kind of thought
That's what I thought.
you guys worked as a team.
That's not my impression, no, I don't believe so.
I don't think we get in, I don't get that deep into if a truck needs a repair. I trust the highway foreman and road commissioner are gonna figure that out,
Right.
Larry does confer with me a lot when he's gonna make a
Okay, so there are
purchase.
these two of you looking at it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so someone came with the bill, like Keith was saying, we're gonna, he's saying go up to 17,000, so no one can spend over a certain amount without two of you at least agreeing on it. So this is how I would kind of interpret it.
Well, this is how this whole discussion started 20 minutes ago. The number here is 20. My point was so we should reduce it. That's all,
Yeah.
It's just so that it's more, whether or not we spend 17,
Right.
it doesn't matter, the number,
I think
it's
you
just
guys
a
need
matter
something
of
we don't really need.
should two
Spend
people
20
sign
grand
off on it,
something.
as opposed to,
It's for all.
To keep everything in check, basically, so that you're not, any board, you would have more than one person making the decision.
How would it be if we tracked each vehicle that we have and the repairs for each vehicle in the spreadsheet so that you can see when one vehicle is starting to cost a lot of money?
Larry could tell you that right off the top of his head, not that what you're
That's easy
saying,
enough to do.
isn't
for the
good,
bills.
but-
Give you the truck.
yeah.
But in an emergency, do we have to have permission to spend the money?
So, no, there's a clause in here for emergency purchases.
yeah, it doesn't revert, it doesn't apply to an emergency.
Okay.
It's
Right,
just
it's not applying to.
day-to-day business,
Yeah.
the cost of running the town. The push is gonna come to shove at some point, in terms of where the economy's going and everything, and where the state of the town is. It's not, there's gonna be a moment in time where we're not gonna be able to buy, that's the way I say it. They're having a meeting tonight up in Woodstock about the school, where they wanna spend, $80 million that no one has, so I don't see how, without reining it in a little bit, we don't know how we're gonna come out ahead. The math doesn't work, so. And granted, yes, everything's more expensive, you gotta make a living, I get it, I understand, I run business myself, it's just, we're not spending, as Lane said, our money, we're spending the town's money, so if we're making big ticket item purchases, then I think the scrutiny number should be a little lower, given, maybe we can raise it later, but, 20 grand's a lot of money.
What
20
number are
grand.
you proposing, Keith?
10,000.
Okay, so if we have major purchases are $10,000, this is what's required for major purchases. Advertisement, invitation for bid, and RFPs in at least one weekly newspaper. Advertisement, invitation for bid, RFP, notice of bids to RFP for the select board, notice to place deadlines, receipts of sealed bid, description of supplies, materials, equipment, services, information, and how and where to be obtained, information on insurance requirements for bidders, statement of the right of municipal, there's just,
That's a part-time job.
But that's for services, for if you're bidding.
no,
out
it's
of-
major purchases. It doesn't say services or major purchases. If we reduce it to 10, every $10,000 purchase we have to do, we have to jump through all those hoops.
Yeah.
Who's gonna do that? Who's gonna do all that work? We spend thousands and thousands of dollars in that department. What?
A bid is different than a purchase.
a bid.
We're talking about revising this policy. And
Yeah, I understand
I
that.
think people should read this because there's
Yeah.
a lot of confusion if we.
Yeah, because a bid to me is, you're getting a bid on, like you got a bid on the building here.
Or if I were to buy that leaf blower that we bought, what was like
Yeah,
almost
that's-
10
to me,
grand.
that's
So
the
would we have to put that out in the paper, like the town of Plymouth
No,
wants to
that-
buy a leaf blower? or-
That's what it says. That's what
it
the
says.
policy says.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of, if you want to purchase like,
It doesn't make any sense.
I think we should revise this thing.
yeah, like a
It's
shredder,
crazy.
like a.
Well, it should be like a bid, if that should apply in the case of a bid, if we want to, whatever, put up a wall, fix the roof. But if we're gonna make a purchase, we shouldn't have to put it in the newspaper. We should,
Right.
that should just be a review. Hey, what do you think about that leaf blower? I don't know.
So change the whole thing.
What about you buy an extra, buy the green one for 500 less? Okay,
I
great.
doubt they'll be lining up to give us bids on the leaf blower.
No, so change the policy. It sounds like it's,
That's what we're here to do.
right, I don't know, that sounds like.
Jim, where this says services though, and I'm just gonna use Comcast as an example, but if we were to go to 10,000 in Comcast, then that bill is like 12, I know we don't use Comcast anymore. But if their services are 12,000 more, we're bidding on services too.
But I think I think we need to have a revise.
This is ours, right?
This is the existing one.
All right,
2014.
Modify it any way we see fit.
We can amend it. yeah.
So let's wrestle with this. I'll start a document, we'll start doing track changes and then come back and meet together.
All right. Let me get some input from Larry also, and see what his comments would might be on
Yeah.
how we can proceed. I understand the point.
Yeah, times are changing.
And also the point is like every time we go to buy like a snowplow, I don't want to have to do up an RFP and.
Right,
you know,
yeah.
We gotta change the policy.
It doesn't,
That's what it
I don't,
says.
and I know Larry will call the two vendors and that's great, you know, and that to me seems sufficient, like we've done our
Yeah.
diligence, got a couple prices, but
Okay.
that or we're gonna have to appoint a purchasing officer.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, yeah.
Purchasing officer.
You volunteering?
Sure. Sure, do I get a company car to go out and look around for stuff?
Expense account.
Sure. Guess we're tabling it for now.
Yeah. I think we got some work to do.
Well, I mean, just in this one paragraph alone, if we just made some changes in there, we clear it way up. 2 different pathways, one for work, bids over work, one for purchases, and we strip all that out of there, so we're not, and it's just
Yeah,
a,
It might be as simple as that, Keith, yeah.
just a sign-off procedure, whatever, a consultation.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Board consults on X amount, on purchases over X amount.
Okay.
The next is Act 82, abatement of education property taxes. So this is a reimbursement if we were to abate the educational property taxes on the people that were at hearings this summer. Is that right? Through the flood. Is there anything you want to share with us about this, Angela, that you know?
I just, the date had been extended, right, and originally, well, Karen, if you want to speak.
Well, I mean, I sent the email, but the date's been extended, but, we said, I said it at a meeting, when one of our big people asked something, said we should do abatements, I said, we'll revisit it if something comes up. So there's a deadline, but I guess what I'm trying to figure out is will we get reimbursed for the school tax? But is it for first, second homeowners, just regular homeowners?
It's all
You know,
criteria set.
what
If you
is-
meet certain criteria, you will be reimbursed.
Right, so what's the criteria?
Well, it says 50%, you gotta have a loss for X amount of days, loss, change of use.
Right.
50% loss in value, loss
so
of use
we
for 60
already-
days, loss of access for 60 days.
Right, so I guess we would kind of have to have an abatement meeting and kind of figure out,
What was the lister's final decision on those properties?
well, we already abated them all, remember? We did them all, so we could revisit the ones that we abated to see if they meet the criteria. And we've got one that was a buyout, right? Is one still a buyout?
FEMA buyout.
And do we have one FEMA buyout? Okay. And then we had 2 that were fire, so that won't require, because it's only for the flooding, correct? And, if it applies,
This is them reimbursing us, isn't it?
it's what?
I mean, this is the state reimbursing the town for us giving the abatement.
Right, well, but there's criteria, so we have to go back and look at all those abatements that we did
Yeah.
to see.
To make sure they meet these criteria.
To meet that criteria, exactly, and I don't know,
This is not a select board decision, this is a board of abatement decision, is that right?
that's what I'm gonna assume.
Well, shouldn't they have had these in hand when they made the abatement decision then?
No, these are all new rules, these are all, we already did the abatements, and a lot of towns did not. I don't know how many towns, there are towns that did not do abatements for the flood. Was it written, I don't want to say names because I don't want to say anything, but there are towns that did not do any abatements.
So are you saying, okay, so someone.
So we did about 12, maybe 10, 12, I said there were 2 fires, there was one that, I don't know, we did do the, I said one's a FEMA buyout.
So if they don't meet these 4 criteria, then they won't, the state's not gonna reimburse us for that.
Right, exactly. So we could sit down and relook at those, and it's not a hearing, so I don't think we'd have to have half the board, I'm not sure on that. You know, just a couple of us, you know, we have to look at them all again to see if they meet the criteria. Because we have them all written down, correct, on our, we have all the sheets, we have everything. If we get reimbursed, that's one thing. If you don't get reimbursed, that's another thing. That would have to be a decision made by the board. The board of abatement. There was something in there, said something about your local, what was that last, something about consult your local, in that email you sent? That's where I got confused.
Do you mind giving them a call, Karen?
The, who am I calling?
Let's say, application request for reimbursement and interest, you gotta have a select board approval confirmation as part of the criteria for your application packet.
That's for
Okay.
interest, and we never borrowed money for abatements.
No?
No, because we, yeah.
Hey, this is due, application's due April 26th.
No, they changed,
They changed,
extended the date to what, November something, correct?
Okay.
So that was my other question. Can people who have not abated at all go now and do that?
I don't believe so. I think it has-
Well, that's kind of how I interpret that,
Okay.
that they've extended the deadline to November.
Would you like to call?
Yeah, I can call. Am I calling that person that's in the email? She's, yeah, whatever her name was, any questions, I can call you. I'll put that on my thing for tomorrow. And then we can, and like I said, because it's not a hearing, and I don't know, select board approval would have to be on top of, once we see what the exact criteria is. Does it stay in there what the criteria is? Did you send, you didn't send that copy to us?
Yeah, I know.
I might not have opened that email yet. Did you send it after the other one?
Nobody's, you know.
There's 4 criteria that you have to meet. You
Well, if I
have
have a copy of that,
to, 1 or more, you have to meet 1 or more of these 4 criteria.
I don't think, well, I think
That only for the educational tax abatement?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if it's educational tax, that means it has to be resident, it has to be resident of town of Plymouth, it's first residency.
not necessarily.
Property owner.
Property owner.
You don't have to be a resident, no. you pay
Everyone
it
pays
away.
property, everyone pays, you're talking about school tax or property tax?
Educational tax?
Everyone pays for educational tax, whether you're,
No, only if you are resident of the
No.
town.
You just pay a little bit less
No,
if you're not a
for
resident.
second homeowners, everybody pays educational tax.
Different amount though.
Right.
If you're a resident and non-resident.
There's resident and non-resident, and everyone, whether you have a second home or first home, you pay educational tax.
Okay, so this is a Board of Abatement issue, not a Select Board.
Right, but then the select board has to approve something,
Okay.
Keith said, I'll read all this, but I'll call, find out.
For if you borrow, if we borrowed.
Right.
I'm reading it here, we didn't borrow, says Jay, so.
Yeah, we didn't borrow, so yeah, I haven't looked at this, so. Does it say that one of the criteria we had to have borrowed?
No, that's just one of the requirements for the application is for reimbursement of interest.
Well, we didn't
That's what I
borrow
was
any,
reading
right?
from,
So right off the bat, I'm like, oh, no, we didn't borrow any, so.
but it doesn't appear that there's any other requirements that, in a straight-up case.
Yeah, we just, yeah, we. read-
Concerning the select board, so it's.
Right, yeah, and like I said, I stated at one of
It's
the
in your
meetings.
ball,
when
balls in your
someone was
court.
Telling us to not do them, and we had already done them, I said, we didn't want to wait, and if changes came down the pike, we'd look at them, so I guess we'll just revisit it at some point, but I'll call, find out about this first.
Thank you.
Because it stated as another act when I was reading it.
Thank you, Karen.
You're welcome. Yeah, it was one of these things, one of these.
So next on our list is the discussion on a possible formation of a volunteer recreation department. Does anybody know where this kind of came from?
Yeah, it came from me.
Oh, awesome, all right.
I was approached by a resident and asked, why don't we have a recreation department? Or a follow-up question is, what would it take to have a recreational department? So I got thinking about it, and it's a great idea. There's no money in the budget to pay anybody to do this right now, and I get that. But I was wondering if there would be a volunteer out there in our community who might be interested in starting a rec department and do some of the legwork and develop a plan, a policy and procedures, and maybe come to the board with a funding request someplace down the road, or maybe get some grant money to do things. So what I'm advocating is, if the board agrees, that we could put an advertisement out there asking for a volunteer to start a rec department in the town of Plymouth, and see what comes up. See who steps up and see who raises their hand and start the discussion. It may be 5-10 hours a week, it may be more, it may be less, whatever works for the applicant who wants to do this. There is grant money out there. I was just reading about a big grant that got distributed to a bunch of towns, millions and millions of dollars for trail work and, recreational facilities like that. So there is definitely grant money out there, and there will be more, but somebody needs to lead the charge, because I think this board has a plate full on other projects.
You're right, you have.
So
So,
we're going to post it like in the journal or something?
yeah, wherever we'd advertise.
Angela could put it in the Plymouth Press.
Yeah, good.
And some other ideas. Angela, didn't you talk about maybe some ideas about having trick or treats for the kids in town to keep families engaged?
Yeah.
So
Pumpkin carving, around Halloween.
So Farm and Wilderness is a really good thing when the kids were little.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
They had a phenomenal, scary, very cool,
Like coloring contests and different
things,
things.
all kinds of kids in. and-
Maybe we could partner with Farm and Wilderness or Bethany Birches and develop some projects, or
They were
keep
pretty scary.
keep our youth active in town doing things. So anyway, that's where that came from. If the board agrees, we can put an ad out there and see where it goes.
that, and it would be nice to solicit, I mean, you may have gotten positive response about the Christmas party that was it the fire department kind of held for the kids? But I mean, I'd be curious, what is appealing to young families, and make that kind of a more interesting community for them, make it a little more appealing.
Focus around the kids.
I really sense there's a need out there. I mean, that was the very first year of that Christmas party that Angela was very active in organizing, and I think it was a great turnout for year one, and it's only going to grow from there. I thought that was a really, really positive thing we did.
I don't know if they were all Plymouth residents, but the Tyson Ladies Aid on the holiday weekend did a thing at the library, Tyson Library, finding dinosaurs in the sand.
Yeah.
And I guess there were 6 kids there. I wasn't able to be there, but, so, there are more kids in town now.
And Ludlow does offer a lot that Plymouth residents do, I know. There's volleyball, there's They got the new track, the,
They got Justin Hijack, who's a select board member, got that $200,000 grant for the skate park.
yeah, because my grandson uses that. He doesn't skateboard, he does is takes his bike in there and rides halfway up the wall.
Find land to do the stuff on.
Well, that's the other thing, you got, we don't have, well, oh no, that's too rocky, never mind.
There was somebody a few years ago, I can't remember his name, who wanted to develop some trails. Who that was, anybody else?
It was PASTA, right? They called themselves, the acronym was
Yes.
PASTA,
Yes.
Plymouth Association of
that?
Trails.
Who was that?
It'd take me 10 minutes to remember, but
I remember
got it.
that, I remember that. I think I attended
I mean,
first
that's
one.
gonna be a volunteer, we're gonna be a volunteer thing, so maybe those people or that person would.
No, there's all
Yeah,
things
no,
up.
it's a
And
good point,
then, like I said,
Margo.
it's the whole.
That's your
shoreline,
thinking cap on it.
this, you know, that,
Okay.
you got.
I like the idea, though, of having a recreation director or coordinator.
Yeah, good.
Our road facilities are rather limited though here.
That's the thing.
We get leased out to the community center, so we can't use that. We have to use
Yeah.
this place.
And I think in the off-season, I think, it's like the other 10 months out of the year, Farm and Wilderness hasn't got a lot going on in some of its facilities, and that might be a possibility. I mean, there's like indoor climbing walls and stuff, and I know Bethany Burgess has a lot of
Yeah, they do.
infrastructure.
They've got a fun day coming up on the 15th.
Do you have an indoor climbing wall?
I think there's a couple of them. They're for little kids, often, but yeah.
Elizabeth has been sending me stuff that you're doing.
So.
Sounds like fun.
But if you got somebody to kind of organize that, if it was a once a month thing or twice a
Yeah.
month thing for kids, I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah, say put something in paper, look for volunteers, see what happens.
Go-kart track.
Go on.
What's going on?
You run around the building.
Okay, while you're in the middle of the renovation, extend the parking lot.
Perfect.
Go
We're
around.
the same person on site, so some, round top.
Okay, so if there are no objections, I'll work with Angela and we'll develop an advertisement, I guess.
Okay. Awesome. Fire warden appointment. Joe is no longer going to, Revenue is no longer going to take on that role, but we appreciate I think it's 2 terms he's done that, maybe more?
Oh, he told me
3?
more than that, I talked to
Because
him
they're 5-year
today.
terms, right?
I think it might be 3.
Yeah, so 15 years.
It's a good run.
Definitely appreciate, he took over for Leon Parkhurst, if I recall.
Yes, that's right. Is somebody willing to do that? He seemed to think Jim Allen would, but Jim
There you
Allen's
go.
getting a lot on his plate.
He's doing it, isn't he? Isn't it? What's in here?
Angela, has he confirmed with you that he's willing to do that?
Jim is gonna do it?
Yes. So the forms are in there, so he's got to be appointed, and then I'll have him and the deputies. It's going to be forms there too.
And then we should put out his contact information.
Correct.
I'll make a
And I
motion to
put it
appoint,
in Joe for the rest of this month.
He's gonna be reachable, right? If you need a fire permit.
I'll make a motion to appoint Jim.
Second.
I'll go on.
Okay.
Here, it's primary structure, so out of state.
And then the primary one is in there for my blind.
Is it? Oh, yes, yep. Is he due for reappointment?
I'm going to say yes, because she reached out. It's all for her updating, and I wanted to tell her, I believe yes, because she sent me stuff.
I'll make a motion then to appoint Mike
Okay.
as deputy.
What position is that?
Deputy fire warden.
Oh, I'll second.
Can we sign it?
Probably. You get that?
Yes, I'm going through my, yep. Yeah, all 3 of us have to sign this one.
Okay.
I'll let you date it. And this is the one from Mike. Awesome.
Want me to put a date on here somewhere, or, I guess right here?
Well, we should, because it's 5-year term. I mean, it's got an end date.
It's just weird the way they have it.
Yeah, it is weird.
Next on the list, we have an update on Vermont Community Foundation grants received. Who is the applicant for the grants? Is that Elaine or you, Angela? The town? Do you want to fill us in on these, or do you want me to read the amounts and? So we got a $3,000 grant from the Vermont Community Foundation to host a free strawberry festival for town residents to recognize and promote emergency services.
Is that supposed to be a surprise, though? I mean, yes. We're not, I mean, we did, it's gonna be donation, right? But we were told in Ladies Aid not to say anything.
Okay.
Nobody heard that.
Rumor, just rumor.
$11,985 for portable radio equipment and storage container for improved emergency response. That's the Connex box, is that correct? So it's the Vermont Community Foundation and the Water Wheel Foundation are pleased to co-support this important work. And $21,544 was received to purchase an ATV for improved and expedited access to remote locations during disaster. And this is from the Foundation's Vermont Flood Response and Recovery Fund, 2023. Is there anything you want to add about
That was a hater, right?
any of these that I?
No, we just, we went and I talked and we decided that we always come to the table with expenses, so it's always nice to bring what came in that, the grants were available. So everything was tied to flood related, so we got something in April and then they reached out and said they still had funds available for May. So Dave was looking for a new home for all his emergency management stuff that worked out good. We were able to get the Connex box so that stuff can go in and be, have good space, dry and stuff. And so we just wanted to share that with the town was able to get.
We go to the Connex box, so we need to find an emergency.
So that was almost $37,000 in grants. That's good news.
Nice job, Angela.
Why like the toys? Like, we should maybe put that in the Plymouth Press too, Angela. Could we, about Dave's position and now Mike and Jim? Yeah, that would be him.
And thanking Joe, we appreciate his service for 3 terms.
Uniformly.
Hopefully I got that right. 3 terms.
Yes.
Next on the list, we have short-term rental enforcement update. That's the ordinance. And I'll just fill you both in. We had a discussion this morning with the STR administrator, Michelle, who does all the administrative work. And we have a handful of property owners that are not registering their rentals. And I think this comes in some cases after 3 certified letters. And so the thought is now and they're not local, they're out-of-town landowners, so they can't be reached easily. So the next step is enforcing the ordinance. And there's not a whole lot of pieces to this. We just need to register with the court system. I think it would be good if, I don't know, so we necessarily have to make an appointment, because I think it would naturally fall to Angela, but I think an appointment as custodian would be helpful. We have several ordinances, these tickets, if you will, work in every situation, but it's important that one person hold that and know, have that relationship with the court as if we have to actually enforce these. So any questions about that?
She was saying they, one place there in the lake, was giving her a bunch of problems.
And so they have the capacity to fine $100 a day until they come into compliance. And I think this ordinance has been in effect for a couple of years, right? And really have not, we've tried to nicely contact people, say you need to get on board, and then there's just a group of people who are ignoring the STR administrator. So I think this is the point where we need to just get their attention.
I agree. It's not fair to the rest of the people that are paying their fair share. Sends a bad message if we let them slide.
So I'd like to make a motion to appoint Angela as custodian. And that is the holder of the main communicator with the court system, who actually has the tickets, if you will, and then whatever officer we've appointed, whether it's the health officer, STR administrator, constable, they go see Angela, they get the ticket, issue it. But that way, there's another person that knows what's happening in the office. And if questions come in, Angela's the point person on the phone and can answer, retreat. If the court's calling, they don't get like an extension that nobody's answering, they get Angela right away. So that's just the person to kind of coordinate that.
You good with that, Angela?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Yes, it's fine.
You're gonna get another bullseye target on you. Add it to the list, right?
But it is the administrator in this case, the STR administrator that does deliver the.
Well, yeah, so my question was, shouldn't Michelle be the one delivering the thing?
It's actually.
Or Frank?
Frank would be the one delivering it. It's just, Angela has oversight of the process. And so she would be monitoring if there's one issue. It's highly unlikely. We do such little and have done little enforcement, but there's a possibility. The constable could have one, or the health officer, which is also Frank, and the STR administrator, or even a zoning one, so that there's somebody that knows what's happening.
Right. Well, in the case of this one we're talking, the lake place here, that guy lives in Massachusetts, so you're just gonna be sending him certified mail, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like most of them they're not living here, and they're out of state.
Yeah, the ones we're getting non-compliance.
They can be served by cops.
Yeah.
Down there, right?
Okay, enforcement. Good.
So somebody's going to second it.
I'll second it.
I don't know as we're ready to discuss it at this meeting, but I think we should consider non-resident fees. And are they sufficient for STRs?
I thought Michelle said it was 200. It's 100.
Yeah. Actually, I shouldn't. So we're talking enforcement is $100 a day, but the actual application fee,
Increase the fee.
I think, for non-residents. I'd like to promote, folks that are doing STRs here, but if you're a non-resident and doing an STR, I'd like to think about us increasing those fees and amending that ordinance.
And we're going to incur legal fees by doing this, aren't we?
I'm not necessarily certain.
I know other towns do it that way.
You're a lawyer.
Yeah. I mean, they have a different fee for non-resident and a fee for, I think Woodstock might be that way, I'm not sure, but I know I've read other towns do it that way. I know Ludlow's proposing a bunch of changes, but I don't know what they are. Or maybe they already passed it, I don't recall. Anyway.
So maybe at the next meeting, I'll bring an idea or two. We can
Okay.
bat it around.
Okay.
Any other business?
Well, in the cases, I'm just thinking again, but
Yeah, no.
they haven't, but most of these people haven't paid anything, right? They haven't paid fees or
And
anything.
it's a handful. It's not like there's a mob. I think there's a handful that are just not. And you know, I think you can, if you don't get a response, you could go back in just continued violation of the ordinance.
Yeah, like it's daily, right?
Yeah, yeah.
No,
And
there's
you
no-
know, and I
There's
think.
no choice now at this point.
And I think the way we operate, it's not like we're gonna surprise you with, you know, here, we just started finding you today, here's your certified letter, 7 days have gone by. It's gonna be like, you have until, maybe June 17th to comply, as an example. Then the clock starts ticking, and even if we've had to pay to serve you, right? I mean, we've generally been pretty cooperative with people. We haven't been heavy-handed.
Right.
And we do think people have been ignoring the certified mail or refusing to accept it.
That's what it sounds like. I mean, a couple of cases I talked to her about, it sounds that, you know, they're just completely, whatever they're doing, throwing out the letter, they're just not responding. So, gotta get their attention.
That's on the website still, isn't it?
Applications on the website.
We also have their email addresses. We can send them these things by email.
Text message?
We sent a registered return receipt letter to Eric Basilius, if you'll remember. He was the person.
Yes.
He still hasn't received it. I sent that on May 24th. He still hasn't received that because he's not home to sign for it, and the post office down there did not need it.
Okay.
So I emailed him today.
He may also be refusing to sign it.
Hmm?
He may not sign it, you know, he could
Well,
refuse to
his
sign it
wife-
and then they take
his
it back.
wife replied and said, no, they had not received it. They got a notice, but they didn't have any directions on the notice of how to retrieve it. So I tracked it, and that is the case. That's what happened. So they tried to deliver, there was no one there, and then it's just waiting to go to delivery. So that's not the best way necessarily, and we can't necessarily say that people are refusing to sign for them. If they're not home to sign for them, they're not left.
How many attempts do they make? 2, 3? How many attempts do they
Only
make?
one was
Only one?
made, this was in Connecticut. So I think Cynthia could also email it to them also with, I think there's something you can do to prove that they've read the email.
Read receipt.
Yeah,
And I don't know, I just got something from a dental office and I just had to sign my name read everything and sign everything right on the computer.
I mean, you could do that too.
I mean, I don't know what technology that takes, but I was a little shocked when they like signed here. I'm like, okay, I read it all, all the paperwork, signed it, and sent it right back to them. So I don't know how that works, but it's new tech, you know, I don't know.
Here's a question. I wonder if the platforms like Airbnb or Faststar or whatever the local thing is can help with contact information. Because they're obviously in contact with the owner.
I was gonna say, you could make an inquiry, like you're making an inquiry, right? And just say, hi.
I want to rent your place. Show up.
Hi, we want you to register your place.
I don't know, just- maybe not, but.
my question.
No, it's a good
whether those
idea.
organizations-
Yeah, I'd say, go ahead and have Frank show up. Sign here.
I know big Acosta, I spoke with a lady, I don't know, a couple months ago, and I just sent her contact information, so she was gonna reach out to her because this woman at Big Acosta said they wanted to be in compliance with our short-term rental thing, but I never heard anything more. Michelle's gonna follow up with her.
Don't they have an office in Ludlow? Yeah.
So that brings us to a conclusion, I think, unless there's other business, we
I'll
have.
make a comment on reading this just now.
Mhm.
I think it's mostly for primary residences, and I think we only had one that's not primary, that was primary residence. But I don't know if we'll see that. But in reading this, and we did not borrow any money, so that's another, we do not meet a lot of the criteria for this. And then you will not be reimbursed, you will not get a check if you did qualify for this, the Department of Taxes will notify the Agency of Education when a municipality's application for reimbursement has been approved. And then the Agency of Education will reimburse the municipality by reducing the amount owed for the next state education tax payment.
For the next one.
Municipalities will not receive checks.
So they give you a credit, in other words.
Yeah, and then you'll have to, I don't have the homeowner, but anyway, but in reading it, it's pretty much stating, I will call on the questions that I have, it pretty much states
It's very crafty.
primary residence.
They don't have the money anyway, so if they just, it doesn't matter, they just give you credit.
Right. Well, that's what's going through my head.
So that brings us to warrants, mail, and we do have an executive session to talk about some HR stuff again. Thank you.